It is January 1st, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. What a year for film this has been. I honestly think as cinephiles, we've been spoiled for choice. There's been some amazing blockbusters, some great awards contenders, some indie darlings in there as well. It's been a great year for movies. There's been some bad ones, don't get me wrong. Cosmic Sin was a steaming pile of shit. But overall, I think it's been a pretty positive experience for movies this year. I've seen 326 movies throughout the year, and 171 of those were 2021 releases. So I had to whittle that 171 down to a list of top 20 films for 2021. A couple of honorable mentions thrown in there as well. But there is one statistic this year that will weigh heavy on my conscience, something that I'm really upset that I didn't achieve, and that was only going to the cinema 99 times. I was one shy off 100. I really wish I hit that 100, so I need to make that a goal in 2022. I'm cracking the century. I will be at the cinema 100 times this year. Nevertheless, let's get into the top 20 of 2021. My favorite movies of the year. The honorable mentions, we have Pig, the Nicolas Cage film. I think one of the grittiest, most grounded screenplays of this year. Judas and the Black Messiah with Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield as outstanding lead performances. Luca from Disney Pixar. If you don't cry in a Pixar film, I'm pretty convinced you don't have a soul. Streamline, an amazing Australian drama from Tyson Wade Johnson. I think it understood the teenage athletic experience mixed with the toxic family drama incredibly well. Raya and the Last Dragon, some of the most exciting animated martial arts I saw. And Shiva Baby, the scariest movie that wasn't a horror film this year. I think those 6 movies are all worth your time. Unfortunately, they just didn't crack into the top 20, but these are the movies that did, starting at number 20 with Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza, a great romantic comedy. Paul Thomas Anderson, the way he shoots films is just so engaging, and the way he writes screenplays, I think, is phenomenal. He pretty much has events. Movies just have events that happen not necessarily in a really narratively constructed way, and it's always engaging. Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman, outstanding in the lead performances. Number 19 for me, I think, was one of the most exciting cinematic experiences of the year, and that was Dune. I think the sci-fi epicness of it was all in the visuals from Denis Villeneuve. Hans Zimmer's score was amazing. I saw the movie in a Dolby Atmos cinema, so I genuinely felt immersed into the world. I just had a couple of issues with the story, but I obviously know that part 2 will probably fix a lot of those issues I had. Number 18 was unfortunately a movie that's not coming out in Australian cinemas till a little bit later this year, but thankfully I got to see due to my writing for crprights.com, and that was Mass. It is a heartbreaking, brutal film, but some of the best performances I've seen this year. 2 sets of parents are having a conversation in a small church room. One set of parents, they are the parents to a school shooter, and the other set are the parents to a victim of that school shooting, and it is just emotionally brutal, but fantastic performances. Number 17 was a little indie film that I saw at Fantasia Film Fest, and that's Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. Fantastic sci-fi idea, very low-key, all shot in one take with an iPhone. And the concept is great. It's about a cafe owner who can see through his security camera onto the monitor himself 2 minutes from now, has conversations with himself 2 minutes from now, and what starts off as like a Tenet sci-fi film turns into a really endearing love story. The Mitchells and the Machines is number 16 for me, the most colorful and vibrant animated film this year. Heartwarming family story, and possibly one of the funniest jokes with the pug and loaf of bread robot scanning. I lost it every time that happened. Number 15 is The Power of the Dog. Benedict Cumberbatch was one of the most menacing characters of cinema this year. Incredibly brooding, it's sort of aroma or atmosphere, I guess, with him, and Jane Campion's direction's amazing. The supporting cast as well, Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, and Cody Smith-McPhee are all amazing in the movie. 14 might be the funniest movie I saw this year, and that's Red Rocket from Sean Baker. It's so good to see Simon Rex in a movie where he absolutely kills it and is getting the awards recognition he deserves. It's a movie that will challenge you. It's not supposed to make you feel comfortable, some of the events that happen in this film. And I always appreciate a film that can sort of open up that discourse, but in a very, very funny way. 13 is another film that's not available in Australia yet, but I absolutely loved, which is Jim Cummings' The Beta Test. It's a satirical movie that's ultimately a fuck you to the toxicity of Hollywood. Jim Cummings is amazing. I think his writing is great. His directing style has evolved so much from Thunder Road, and the way him and PJ McCabe write screenplays is always engaging for me. 12 is a documentary from Edgar Wright, the Sparks Brothers. I had no idea who Sparks were as a band before going into this film, and I did learn a lot about them, but I was just really drawn to their kookiness and their unabashed, unapologetic way of living their life and their influence on music. I think Edgar Wright captured their style of band so visually well in a absolutely engaging documentary. Number 11, Edgar Wright again, back-to-back spots with Last Night in Soho. I did not see any trailers for this film, so I went in completely blind. And I know some people have some issues with how crazy the third act gets, but I was on board with it. I think stylistically and aesthetically, he's a visually great director. I love his comedy, I love his music choices, and I was on board for the absolutely ludicrous third act. Now we're in the top 10. These movies I think are all so deserved of their spots in this list. Number 10 is King Richard. Will Smith getting that Oscar recognition. I think he may win it this year as the father of Venus and Serena Williams. I'm a sucker for sports biopics, and this movie just hit every nail on the head with the sports drama, amazing performances, really uplifting, heartwarming story. Number 9, I only caught recently, and I'm so glad I saw it before the end of the year because it's getting a cinema release here in February, but Come On, Come On from Mike Mills is one of the most beautiful on-screen chemistries I've seen between Joaquin Phoenix and who plays the uncle to a kid played by Woody Norman. They're amazing on screen together. Their banter and Woody Norman's ability to keep up with Joaquin Phoenix in an acting sense was amazing to watch. But this movie sort of hit me on a bit of a personal level with some of the relationship dynamics that go on throughout this film. So obviously very emotionally moved by that, but I think it's done in such a beautiful way through Mike Mills' really patient screenplay and really patient direction. Number 8 is Celine Sciamma's Petite Maman. I think this movie was wholesome. It's 72 minutes long, and I love a movie that's 90 minutes and under, but this movie just captured childlike innocence so incredibly well. The way kids ask questions, especially in this film that deals with grief, was just caught so well. And the two child actors in this film, they were absolutely fantastic. Number 7 is Belfast. This movie, I had a smile on my face from beginning to end. Kenneth Branagh's love song, or love letter, I guess, to Ireland and to cinema and to relationships and love and family. He captures so much authentic happiness in this film, considering the movie is set through a tumultuous time in Ireland's history. Number 6 is the movie that the movie that second most made me weep throughout the year, and that's Apple TV's CODA, which stands for Child of Deaf Adults. What a movie. Amelia Jones is absolutely stunning in this film. She is an amazing actress. Troy Kotsur is the deaf father. It gives a supporting role that is, again, worthy of Oscar recognition. But the way this movie just captures such a normal family dynamic, considering that Amelia Jones's character is the only person of hearing within her family, is done with such care and such heart. Number 5 is The Worst Person in the World, one of the most enjoyable movies I've watched, the most relatable movies I've seen, and not because I consider myself the worst person in the world, but what this story is about is just, so many people will relate to the struggles of trying to find purpose and meaning in life. Everyone thinks we're making the wrong decisions all the time, but this movie just has a beautiful spotlight on the fact that no one knows what the fuck they're doing in this life, and that is completely okay. As long as you're not hurting anyone, and as long as you're trying your best, that is what this movie captures so beautifully on screen. It goes from hilarious and heartwarming to breaking your heart within an instant, and it was one of the most amazing cinematic experiences, one of the best screenplays of the year. Number 4 was possibly the most brutal movie I watched this year, and that's even though there's no violence really throughout the film. Thematically, NITRAM was absolutely brutal to watch. Caleb Landry Jones is amazing in this film. An American actor doing an Australian accent is always a risky thing, but the way he sort of captures the nuances of NITRAM, it's just haunting. It was a genuinely haunting film, and for those who don't know, it's a movie inspired by the events leading up to the Port Arthur massacre, which was one of the most awful, and it still is the most awful massacre to happen in Australia's history, which led to our strict gun laws. So it's not an easy watch. I don't recommend it to everyone, but for an acting experience and a visceral cinematic experience, it was high up there for me. Number 3 on the list is the French film Titane, another film that I find incredibly hard to ask people to watch or to recommend to people because it's cooked. This movie is cooked, but all of its messed upness and every fucked up thing that happens in the film is such a guise for so many other themes that are happening under the surface of this movie. Number 2 was my favorite cinematic experience with a crowd this year, and that was A Quiet Place Part 2. I love A Quiet Place, the first one. I think it's a great horror film, but sitting with a packed audience, watching A Quiet Place 2, hearing people try to be quiet, but I had so much fun with this movie. I think this is one of those movies that was initially delayed that actually lived up to the hype. I was actually a little disappointed with some of the movies that were delayed, so we had that time to build up the hype. For me, A Quiet Place 2 lived up to the hype. My favorite movie of this year, my number 1, I'm going to get to into a second, but I want to take 2 minutes to talk about something that we all watched this year that I don't know if we can call a movie. I don't know if this is breaking any of these non-existent rules with top 10 lists. But Bo Burnham's Inside is probably my favorite thing I saw this year. I watched it about 3 or 4 times. I've listened to the album many times. I've listened to All Eyes on Me too many times to count. But Bo Burnham's Inside hit me on a level where it sort of, and this is the beauty of art, it opened or made me realize something that I didn't realize, and that, like, last year, COVID's shit. COVID's fucking awful, but there was a point last year where Queensland, we were in a lockdown. I didn't work for about 2 months, and I didn't realize until watching Inside that was possibly some of the 2 worst months of my life from my mental health, and it was shit. I could have done so much with Nick's Flicks Fix, and I could have done so much with my health, and I didn't. I played video games for 2 months. I drank lots of alcohol. I put on a lot of weight. I ate shit food, and it was fucking dreadful. And I didn't realize how shit it was. Like, I obviously had repressed it in my memory until watching Bo Burnham's Inside, and it just hit me on such a level where not only did it make me realize how awful of a time that was, but how it's okay to feel that way. And once you realize you feel that way, taking those right steps to making yourself feel better. And it was one of the biggest reasons that earlier in 2021, I did the fundraising for the triathlon, which I'll be doing again. There'll be a little video about that soon. But it just made me realize how dainty our mental health is and how much we really need to protect it. But he did it in such a comedic and artistically beautiful way, and seeing his struggle made me understand my struggle, and I'm sure it did for a lot of people who also watched it and got the same thing out of it. But that's my cheeky little throw in there of the favorite thing I saw this year was Bo Burnham's Inside. But the number 1 movie I saw this year, and this is one that it came out of nowhere. I heard there was some good reviews. It got such a small release. And I remember sitting in the theater, I was with 2 other reviewer friends of mine, and we were speechless by the end of this movie. And 9 Days is possibly the most beautiful movie I've watched in the last decade. I rewatched it again on Christmas Day with my partner and partner's family, and I was still tearing up in all the moments I teared up before. And it's just such a life-affirming movie. It is such a beautiful life-affirming movie. It is about a man who interviews souls for the chance to be born. Artistically, Ed Sonoda has created a very interesting and invigorating sort of world. He makes it so easy to understand the premise, but it's Winston Duke's performance as he is investigating something throughout the film, because I don't want to spoil any of it, because it's fucking great. This movie's amazing. But it's amazing performance that it asks a lot of morality questions with life. A lot of the souls sort of ask and observe things in life that's bad, but also things that are good. And it makes you really appreciate the little things in life. So I highly recommend checking out 9 Days if you haven't already. But that's my top 20 of 2021. So many great movies. I'd love to hear what your favorite movies were. Let me know, please, down in the comments what your favorite movie of 2021 was. Here's 2022, another year of hopefully amazing movies. Thank you all for your support over the last year. 2021 was probably one of the best years for Nick's Flicks Fix, and I'm so excited to show you some of the things that I have planned for 2022. Love you all, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next review.